And now, Chapter 5 of The Last Boy on Earth, Cave of Wonders. People made the rules, and since the people were gone, the rules were gone too. From now on, there was nothing he absolutely had to do because of a rule that someone else made for him to follow. The thought occurred to Brady as he rode Rocinante down the empty streets that some rules might come in handy and be a good thing. For instance, it seemed like a good idea to never leave food uncovered because the rats would be attracted to it. Rats were bad, and there were a lot of them in this new world, so a good rule was to cover the food. There were rules that were necessary, like never leave a fire unattended, because all he needed was a bigger fire, one that would burn down the cities. He wasn't ready to survive in the wilderness all by himself, not yet. But some rules were stupid. He knew it. Every kid knew it. He believed every adult knew it too. Some rules were there just to satisfy the sensibilities of grown-ups. When you belch, you say, "Excuse me." That was out the door. Now he would burp long and loud and be happy he'd eaten. It was the same for farts. A fart meant that food was working through the digestive tract and that nutrients were being absorbed in his small intestine. A fart was a beautiful thing. It was the sound of survival. So, some rules make perfect sense. Some rules are actually cool. They set limits, and life can be lived inside those limits. I mean, how many times did I stop myself from trying something because I didn't want to look stupid? We don't try things because we're afraid to fail. We're afraid to fail because other people will know we failed and think we're stupid. But what about when there aren't any other people? It means I can try anything, do anything I want, as long as I follow the safety rules and not the don't look stupid rules. From now on, I drive down the right side of the road because now that there's never anyone on the other side of the road, I own the road. Swearing was another thing. He had been told never to swear. His mother insisted that he never should curse in public, so he tried not to, for her. But when he did swear, it felt good. When he was with his friends, now and then, he would utter a few interesting epithets and colorful metaphors. It was a bonding between friends. Of course, he was smart enough not to swear in front of any adults. That wouldn't be smart, because there would be consequences. But he was alone now, and he could swear all he wanted. That's where the rules that help people survive veered away from the rules that help make life worth surviving. He considered, as the analytical observer, that a life lived doing anything he wanted to do might lead to a short life that missed some of the significant things that a long life should encompass. He wanted to live a good life, not just any life, and it seemed to him that he should cling to some of the old rules, even if they didn't help him simply survive. They made life more than bearable. He was used to them. They made life worthy. One of the rules he wanted to live by was simple and made the most sense. Be prepared. From the Journal of Brady Smith. I've been checking my survival list and think it's time to move on to the next thing. I have good transportation, but I still need a place to live, and that's a problem. See, I've been staying at Don Quixote's house at night, and it's been good, better than anywhere else so far. The problem is the whisperers. It's like they're following me. If I stay anywhere more than 1 or 2 nights in a row, they come at me with a vengeance. It's so bad that I can't sleep, and I think they're driving me crazy. If I find another place to sleep than the place I was the night before, they still visit me, but only like background noise, like static on the radio. So as much as I like living here, I have to leave. But how can I live anywhere, going from place to place every night? I've thought a lot about it. I've got it figured out. Right now, as I write in this little black composition book, I'm sitting at the table of my brand new recreational vehicle, a small motorhome. I remember seeing it parked next to a house off Grandview Avenue in Bangor when I was exploring, so I went back, and after a little searching of the house, I found the keys in the sock drawer of the guy who owned it, a Mr. Willette. He was a careful fella and pretty well prepared. It's not one of those huge motorhome buses either. It's a little bigger and longer than a van, but it has all the comforts of home. A gas stove, gas refrigerator, shower, toilet, sink for doing the dishes, heater, air conditioner, and best of all, a generator for power. I can play my Xbox, charge my MP3 player, have electrical light at night, everything. It's awesome. It's like camping every single day of the week, and I can park it at a different place every night. And there's a hitch on the back, so I can put a little trailer on it and haul around Rocinante along with his trailer. I have to say, I'll miss old Don Quixote's house. Well, I never did figure out who lived here, but I'm thankful I found the place. I'm going to write about this only once and not say a whole lot about it, but it was like that place came straight out of my head. I mean, every place I looked for something, there it was. The books on the shelves were all books I'd either wanted to read or had already read. All the artwork was stuff I personally loved. All the furniture was Baby Bear, just right. And everything was perfect in every way. Sometimes, just before falling asleep, it felt like I'd lived there all of my life, and that I was the old man who had collected all this stuff, and it was somehow mine, from a life I'd already lived, or was supposed to have lived, but was interrupted, and that felt okay. If I could have imagined a little house to be an old man in, that would have been the place. Oh, and I almost forgot. I thought I'd better explain something. This motorhome has the word Fun Seeker painted in large letters on the side. I think it was put there at the factory, like it's a model name or something. Anyway, I like fun just as much as the next guy, but I'd feel stupid living in a place with the word fun on the outside. I took some of the paint from Don Quixote's house and painted the word life over the word fun. I am now the proud owner and operator of the Life Seeker. She's my land boat, my home away from home, my gypsy caravan. Max, we need to take a journey to the Cave of Wonders. The Cave of Wonders, of course, was Brady's reference to the story of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, but it was also his way of letting go of the names of things. Main Military Supply was a good enough name in the world of before, but in the present, the Cave of Wonders was by far more appropriate. The story had been one of Brady's favorites before the abandonment. Once a month or so, he would cajole his mother to drive there, though she did not particularly think that a store with rifles in it was a fit place for an impressionable young man. But to Brady, it was far more than a gun store. Besides the weaponry, it had a vast array of military surplus, survival equipment, and a good supply of precisely those kinds of odds and ends that especially appealed to the sensibilities of a young man entering the world of men. They weren't guns, to be sure, rifles and pistols and replicas of some famous firepower from World War I all the way to Vietnam. But there was so much more in the store that drove his imagination into flights of fancy. Time had a strange way of letting go in the store, he thought. Everywhere he looked, there were Italian officers' helmets next to T-shirts with the Marine Corps emblem Semper Fi. There were dinner kits and water bags with straws, camouflage duct tape, and meals in olive drab plastic pouches made for the military. But also for the dining delight of the careful customer. He had been to many places since he began mapping and scavenging for survival, but he'd only visited this place once, early in his explorations. Of all the stores in this whole city, this was precisely the place that would have the supplies he would need to survive. As he pulled up into the front of the store, he was always a little taken aback by the fiberglass statue of an astronaut standing by the entrance. He had seen it many times, an interesting conversation piece that was now a reminder of how far humans had gone and a relic of the world that had sent them. How long, he wondered, before humans would again walk on the moon? Maybe never. What shook him a little was the sight of a standing human figure. It wasn't real or alive, but in some strange way it had the semblance of humanity. Brady stopped the engine and waited until Max jumped out behind him before he approached the statue. It was larger than life, weathered in many a storm so its colors were slightly fading, and the weave of the fiberglass blanket was easily discernible. There had even been a patch job of khaki-colored plastic resin on the shoulder. The astronaut just stood there, a stalwart guard to the now abandoned store. "Good morning, Neil Armstrong. How are you today?" he asked aloud. He didn't mean anything by it, but he found it amusing that he was talking to such a ridiculous, out-of-place thing. "Any problem with me just walking in and taking what I want? Yes? Well, don't worry. I'll pay for everything." "Not," he said with a laugh. Too quickly, though, the silence that fell so heavily after every uttered word shut him up and left him feeling foolish. Max jumped against the glass of the door and gave one brief bark. Yeah, I know, boy. We got each other. I could talk to you all day long. Isn't that right, boy? Another bark followed, and the strange feeling that he had stepped away from sanity for a moment by talking to a statue evaporated. There were security stickers proclaiming to the world that this was not a good place to break into. One of the signs was handwritten and said, "This store is protected by the most qualified and highly trained protection system ever devised. An American." Signed, the management. There were signs like that all through the store, and it was clear that the owners obviously thought of themselves as serious deterrents. But to Brady, especially now, they were empty threats. Besides, he was an American, wasn't he? Perhaps he was the last American. Somehow he believed that the people who had assembled such a useful collection of equipment and tools would not begrudge him their use. He was sure that they would say, "You need this stuff more than we do, buddy. Take what you need. Good luck to you." Brady put his hand on the door and said aloud, "Cave of Wonders, it's I, Ali Baba. I know the magic words. Open sesame." Brady could have sworn the reflection of the astronaut in the window tilted his head in a nod. No, that was impossible. For an instant that lasted as a segment of forever, he waited. And then it happened. The door opened. He didn't stop to question why or how this occurred. In the depths of his boyhood self, he simply accepted it as a strange coincidence and walked in. He took his time in the labyrinthine darkness, for the aisles were long and deep and there was no light. In a moment he had opened a plastic package containing a 12 LED headlamp and was moving forward through the darkness like a miner searching for glistening veins of coal, like Theseus in search of the Minotaur, or Hercules in search of the Nemean lion. Aisle after aisle was catalogued in his mind. Military food rations, gloves, coats, boots of all kinds and types, heavy winter gear, and desert survival clothing. There were steel ammunition boxes, fishing tackle, some oddities like surplus gasoline cans from some now-defunct government in Eastern Europe, and South American dress helmets complete with red feathery plumes. Aisle after aisle revealed a truly amazing assortment of tools that he could use to help him stay alive in almost any situation. There were long johns that seemed absurd in their length, and boots made for giants, canvas mittens that reached all the way to his elbow, and green wool pants made for Gulliver. He began to gather his supplies, taking whatever he wanted in whatever amount he pleased. He took several trips to the Life Seeker, resupplying food, medical supplies, telescopes, binoculars, photographers' vests with superfluous pockets, and belts, which could be attached to all manner of small containers, holsters, and bags. Best of all, he thought, was a gas mask with replaceable activated carbon filters. One more time. Best of all, he thought, was a gas mask with replaceable activated carbon filters. Such a thing would be useful for entering places he had already forsworn never to enter again, the dead houses. The stench of death seemed to fill some of the streets now that the warm weather had begun to hit. This thing could make life more bearable. The final aisle gave him pause. In the back of his mind, he knew that there would be guns in the store, and he'd seen them with his mother when she'd brought him in the earlier days. He had always purposely avoided that particular aisle, for it was an entire wall of weaponry, an arsenal of guns. There were at least 300 rifles, all neatly and carefully leaning in their cases behind the counter. A long steel cable ran through and around all of them, and they were equipped with trigger locks. They stood there at attention like sentinels waiting for a rotation of the guard that would never come, never housing another cartridge, never hurtling another bullet through the air. In their way, they were dead now, too. They were all well maintained, their barrels bathed in the slightly fragrant oil used to maintain movement and repel rust, but Brady knew that eventually nothing could repel time, and they would rust and crumble with the passing of the centuries. His father had died from a gunshot wound. He recalled it with the strength of loss that only yesterday could bring, especially here and now among such ordnance. How many times had his father cleaned that rifle of his at the kitchen table in the early fall, getting ready for hunting season? How many mornings had his father left them sleeping comfortably and warm in their beds while he rolled out in his old pickup so he could be there at dawn to take advantage of the quiet moments and take down his deer? And then every year he would proudly bring the kill home and call his son and wife out to see it, legs tied tightly and head lying on the back of the truck. Brady stood in front of the glass case and ruminated over the vision of his eyes and the blending imagery of his mind. Rifles blended with photos of his father. Boxes of bullets swirled together with the image of his mother sitting on the edge of her bed, hands cupping her face. Paper targets overlapped the long black hearse that carried his father's body to the grave. By now, Brady had seen hundreds of dead humans, all in various stages of decay. They'd stopped frightening him, but the loss of his father still caused an anguish he knew he would never lose, no matter how many tears he cried or how many years would go by. Someone had left a pistol, unlocked, on top of the case. It was a large handgun, although Brady didn't know the caliber or the name of the manufacturer. Nearby was an open box of shells. Whoever had put it there must have had an idea in mind, and then must have been drawn away from their original intention to some other future, some other fate. There it lay, an omen and a challenge. Brady found himself quietly bound by the gray gun's metal sheen and its perfect, hard lines. How might this weapon save his life in the coming days, weeks, months, and years? Who knew when a wild creature might corner him in some future day, and how he might simply pull the pistol from its holster and eliminate the problem? Who could say with any certainty that the future might require such a weapon to stay alive? The handgun was the simple solution. It was prepared and laid there to await his arrival by some thoughtful prophet so that he, and only he, would claim it and take it for his own. His heart was pounding a heavy metal rhythm in his chest as he slowly reached toward it. He picked it up and tested its weight. Heavy and dull, he found the need to hold it quickly vanishing, and he dropped it back on the counter. And then in a rush of memory, he recalled the late morning when his life had been so irrevocably changed by a single phone call, and a scream from his mother tore the fabric of his happy young life, revealing the harsh truth beneath. His father was dead. A bullet straight through his heart, a single bullet. An occurrence with a weapon that accidentally discharged ended his world long before the advent of the abandonment. Brady decided that he wouldn't succumb to the lure of the gun. It had already cost him too dearly. He would have to rely on other weapons and strategies to save himself. And that was when he heard the first voice speaking from behind the case. "Hey, kid, you need me." "Yeah, that's right. Over here. I'm just the thing for the boy faced with a survival of the fittest situation. Let me tell you, I'm not too heavy, have a built-in scope, and can take down a rabbit in 300 feet if you're a good shot." And then another voice from further down the line of rifles said, "I don't waste your time. The boy's a sissy. Hey, kid, there's some toy guns over in the back. They ought to suit you fine." "I'm just too afraid of the big bang bang and the loud boom boom." Brady thought that the voice came from an M1 carbine standard issue World War I. It was in excellent shape, but its manners left a lot to be desired. "Leave him alone, you jarhead," said a kinder voice from near the register. It was a hunting rifle, just like the one his father had owned before. "You don't want those, buddy. This place is full of big and shiny, but you need sensible, and I'm just the right one for you. Your daddy had you with him the day he bought my brother, manufactured in the same factory on the same day. We're practically family. Hey, just take me. I'm free now. I don't want to sit here and rust away. I'll serve you well, just like my brother served your dad." "Shut up!" Brady yelled, breaking the silence that had fallen and nearly solidified in the store. Had the voices been real? Were they in his head? He looked at the wall of guns in anger. "Go to hell," he screamed. "Bastards, you killed him." He waited for a response, but either he was very persuasive or beginning to go out of his mind. He remembered the day he went with his dad to buy the hunting rifle. He remembered the first time they went to the gravel pit and shot at targets. He wanted to shoot it so badly, but his father told him it was too dangerous for a little kid. In his ears still rang the loud report of the rifle and the acrid taste of fresh powder clouding the air whenever his father shot the rifle, echoing like a thunderbolt exploding in his mind. It always would, every day, and for the rest of his life. Still, he thought, I need a weapon. From what he knew of early man, who also faced the natural world alone, they always had weaponry. Had Theseus a gun, or Hercules or Jason? Did King Arthur face the armies that would tear down Camelot with a bazooka? A hero needed a better weapon, like Obi-Wan's lightsaber, a weapon of a nobler age. What could serve to save him, be of use, light enough to carry, and easy to wield? He was drawn to the knife section of the store. Whoever had operated this establishment had a wondrous and fantastic taste in blades. There were swords and machetes, bowie knives and pocket knives, knives that unfolded, locked open, or flicked easily with a quick wrist of the wielder. He liked the idea of a knife, even a collection of them. They would last a lifetime, need no bullets, and could be used for many different purposes, only one of which was killing. Boy Scouts had knives. It seemed logical to him that he might become proficient with a blade, and that a man who knew how to properly use a knife might be a formidable opponent. In the end, he took many, since they were light and easy to carry. He had one for his boot, two for his pockets, two for his belt, as well as a machete, and for his own amusement, a replica of a Japanese samurai sword, which he strapped over his back for easy retrieval over his shoulder. He found a diamond sharpener and a diamond sharpening kit that could be used to keep all the blades seriously honed. Before leaving, Brady felt a strange compulsion to return to the pistol on the gun counter. The way it had been left there, unlocked and ready to use, haunted him. If there was some other person on Earth and they happened into this place, they would have no problem arming themselves to the teeth. But they would not have this pistol at their disposal. He picked it up, along with a box of shells that lay near it, and walked to the back of the store, switching his headlamp on to navigate through the channels of darkness that used to simply be the aisles. In the back he found what he was looking for, a large black gun safe, fortuitously left open. He placed the pistol and bullets inside and securely shut the door, spinning the combination lock after turning the handle to the locked position. There, he thought. It would stay until the seas went dry and the mountains crumbled into them. Brady shooed Max out of the store and closed the door gently. He turned and looked at the astronaut, laying his hand upon its shoulder. "Neil, old buddy, keep the cave safe until I return again. Remember, no one shall pass except if they utter the password." The astronaut's golden visor belied no movement or acknowledgement from within, but Brady turned back after a few steps and stared long at the astronaut. Had he just heard the slightest of sounds, a tinny radio voice saying, "Roger that"? Brady walked away from the Cave of Wonders towards an uncertain future. End of chapter.